Welcome back to the podcast. This is your host, Haley David, and I am curious to know, what is the dumbest idea that you've had lately? Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode where I will share my dumbest idea and how it's been one of the best things that's happened in a while. Today's episode is a little bit different from previous ones. For the OG podcast listeners, you can already tell that there has been a big change. And the title of today's episode has a double meaning because we are going to talk about what is actually bad for business, and I'm going to formally introduce you to the new name of the podcast. The Money Rebel podcast has officially been rebranded, and it is now called the Bad for Business Podcast by Money Rebel. And welcome to the first episode with a new podcast name. Now, bad for business is probably a phrase that you've heard other people say, have said it yourself, or you've definitely heard in pop culture references and in movies and TV shows. And some examples of things that we've heard people say are bad for business are things like you can't have colorful hair, tattoos, piercings, it's bad for business. Or maybe it's thoughts like we can't charge more than our competitors because it'll be bad for business. We can't do anything different because, it's always been done this way in our industry. Like accountants are meant to be super serious, and you can't have a fun brand because no one will take you seriously because it'll be bad for business. But none of those things are actually bad for business. And that's why today we are going to chat about what is actually bad for business in 2025. It is not any of those examples I just said, because yelling at a customer is actually bad for business. Having fun in your marketing, even though your industry is usually super serious, not bad for business. Most of the time, what people say is bad for business is just their own fear of stepping outside of the norm for their industry to do something different, or it's just them worrying about breaking the rules. And this is really about the belief that makes us think that we have to do what everyone else is doing, or it'll be bad for business. So I want you to think about some of the things that you've wanted to do in your business, but you didn't because of this same fear. I could talk all day about this topic, but before I keep going, I want to chat about the podcast name change. So why did I change the name from the Money Rebel podcast to the Bad for Business podcast? Here's the backstory behind the name change. A few months ago, I took part in a newsletter strategy workshop because I was thinking about what type of email marketing newsletter I wanted to release for Money Rebel. I have been so bored lately, actually for a while, with the typical business content that I've been seeing. And probably most of you listening to this can also agree that this whole how to make six figures in 6 weeks narrative is feeling pretty old. I am just so tired of seeing all the same regurgitated, boring content about growing a business. And really, I'm just tired of seeing the highlight reel content. So I wanted to do something a little different, and I got into brainstorming mode. And as a business owner, it is so helpful to have a business and brand that you can look to for inspiration and ideas that is not in your industry. One of the brands that I'm obsessed with is Liquid Death. I have always resonated with Liquid Death's marketing and their brand story. Their founder did an interview a while ago that I'm going to link in the show notes. And basically, he asked himself what the dumbest thing he could do to help him get into a creative, innovative mindset. So here's the exact quote from the interview. When Mike Cessario, I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, apologies if I'm not, when Mike Cessario began to concept Liquid Death, he asked himself one key question. The same one his team still uses to ideate its famous marketing campaigns. What is the dumbest idea we could have right now? And the person writing this interview said, probably making a water that looks like a can of beer, calling it Liquid Death and saying it might kill you. Why? Because if you try to think of a smart idea, you're almost always going to come up with something proven that's been done before. You kind of have to trick your brain to come up with a bad idea to truly be thinking in an innovative territory, he told CNBC. Try starting with, maybe not ending with, the dumbest, craziest, most fun idea. Chances are you are going to end up with something all of your own, end quote. So when I was doing that newsletter workshop, I asked myself that same question. What is the dumbest idea I could have right now? Well, if every other business coach and their mother are creating podcasts and content all about six-figure success secrets or how to scale your business, grow your business 101, etc., the dumbest thing I could do as a business coach and consultant is to create something called Bad for Business. It is literally the opposite direction every other coach is going right now. As soon as I came up with that name, I was like, fuck, yes, this is the name. And the people who don't get it probably aren't my people anyways, but this is how the name and the idea for Bad for Business was born. As I said earlier, welcome to the very first episode of the Bad for Business podcast by Money Rebel, because being creative, different, and bold aren't bad for business. They are the game changer. And if you want to grow your business by leaning into these exact things, this podcast is for you. I want to approach marketing, business education, and entrepreneurship from a different direction. And that's exactly what I intend to do on this podcast. It was first born as a newsletter, but your girl is a yapper, not a writer. So this idea needed a different medium. And brands like Liquid Death that are out here being boldly different probably get told all of the time that their marketing is bad for business or too much because it doesn't fit into the normal box for their industry. I mean, Liquid Death is literally a water company. Most of the other people in its industry, like Dasani or the other water companies, are definitely going a different direction. So I highly recommend you go take a peek at some of Liquid Death's Instagram comments because it is so funny. There is always at least one person offended. I'm really inspired by a lot of their marketing content that they do. And a lot of the time it is over the top, which is one of the reasons why I love it. And even though I wouldn't necessarily go that over the top with some of Money Rebel's marketing, it really helps me get my creative juices flowing and is an expander of what is possible for business. Because if they're able to make millions off of being so boldly different in their industry, not only with their name, but with their marketing, with their branding, with their packaging. I mean, every time I drink a Liquid Death, someone thinks I'm drinking beer. It doesn't matter if it's 9 a.m. or if I'm driving, like literally every time I have that can in my hand, someone is like, what the fuck is that? Are you drinking beer? What is it? So I love that brand for many different reasons, but for one of them being, it's an expander to show that it is possible to not only make money and have tons of success, but to do it in your own way, even when every other company in your industry does it the same traditional way that's always been done. It's the expansion that we need, that being different and having not only a product and a service, but marketing that is just so outside of the box is something that customers want. So that is the backstory of not only why I wanted to change the name from the Money Rebel podcast to the Bad for Business podcast, but how I came up with the name in the first place. So what you can expect moving forward from the Bad for Business podcast by Money Rebel, there'll be fun episodes about entrepreneurship, business, marketing, pricing, sales, all of the normal business stuff, but with a twist. It is not going to be your traditional business bullshit. There will also be guest interviews with other founders. There's going to be Scotland content, and the Money Rebel Hotline is a segment that I did on the Money Rebel podcast, and that series is here to stay. And that is where I answer your questions that you submit live on the podcast. So if you want to submit your question, you can find the link in the show notes to that. So if you are used to hearing the Money Rebel podcast name, this is the same show with the same host, me, Haley. Hi, just with a different name and a slightly different theme. The new podcast name also has a double meaning, has probably lots of meanings, but to me at least it has a double meaning because naming my podcast Bad for Business and not naming it something that focuses on business success, like six-figure success secrets, could be bad for business. But I don't care because I want to have fun with this and I want to do something differently because I know that my clients and other business owners are just so tired of a lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now and we want some real shit. So if you like real shit, you'll love this podcast. My goal is for this to be fun and educational while also feeling like a breath of fresh air compared to the usual, I made 100K in 4 months, let me teach you how, like boss babe content. This is also like not a here's what you're doing wrong, like everything you're doing is bad for business. It's not that vibe at all. It's more like let's ditch the highlight reel and show the real messy fun side of business and life with episodes that feel like a behind the scenes coaching session and stories I'd share over a drink with you in Scotland rather than a boring marketing podcast. And as I mentioned earlier, the theme for this podcast is changing the way you think about not only what's bad for business, but the way that you think about business, about marketing, about your life, about the rules that you've created for your life and success. It's really about changing the way we think and questioning some of these things, beliefs and thoughts that we have held, not only about our business, but also our success and other things. And for those of you that are new to the show, I am recording this from my flat in Edinburgh, Scotland. I moved here from Nashville, Tennessee in 2022. And one new thing for this podcast is you can expect lots of Scotland content mixed into the show. So if you've never wanted to travel to Scotland before, you sure as hell are going to want to after listening to a few of these episodes. I'll be talking about what it's like living in Scotland and the lessons that I've learned as an American toddler mom running a business that serves clients worldwide. Make sure you're subscribed or following the podcast wherever you like to listen so you never miss out on an episode. As always, thank you so much for listening and talk soon.